Thank you, Mr. Johnson. All right, moving on to item number 11, the Strategic Research and Stakeholder Outreach Consultant Services. Mr. Chesney, welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the board. My name is Mike Chesney. I'm Chief Strategy Officer here at TCA. The item before you is the Strategic Research and Stakeholder Outreach Consultant Services. Back in April of 2015, we launched a larger effort to assess opportunities for mobility improvements in South Orange County. The Foothill Eastern Transportation Corridor Agency Board of Directors previously approved the engagement of an experienced issues management and consensus building firm with knowledge of the region to conduct a community ascertainment study. The purpose of the study was to gather stakeholder input to gain insight into how best to work collaboratively to address issues that improve mobility within South Orange County and, more importantly, throughout the region. We're about halfway through that ascertainment study, and a draft report is expected to be ready after the first of the year. The next step is to bring on this strategic research and stakeholder outreach consultant to help us develop a strategic outreach plan. This firm will use the information from the ascertainment study and develop and execute a comprehensive outreach plan that formulates compelling messages and puts in place a program to inform the public about the benefits of finding a solution that will help reduce gridlock, improve air quality, and enhance mobility throughout the region. Again, this is a very deliberative next step in a larger global effort that we are undertaking here at the agency to understand how to promote positive aspects of transportation mobility solutions in South Orange County. The procurement for this was initiated with 297 firms being notified of this procurement. 64 firms expressed interest. 6 firms submitted proposals, and 3 firms, after evaluation, were then shortlisted and interviewed by TCA staff and 2 members of the board of directors. We are recommending the prime consultant Venture Strategic of Irvine, California, with their team of sub-consultants, which include Kurt Pringle and Associates from Anaheim, California, Smith Johnson Research, who are based in Sacramento, and DMI Direct, who is based in Lake Forest, California. This team was deemed to be the best qualified and had a comprehensive plan to accomplish our contract goals. This overall contract will be for 3 years, with this initial task order being executed. This task order is for a not-to-exceed fee of $472,000. The detailed scope of work for this task is in your staff report. All subsequent task orders after this will certainly be brought before the board for approval at a later time. This procurement was brought forward in the Joint Strategic Planning Ad Hoc Committee meeting on September 24th and the Foothill Eastern Mobility Ad Hoc Committee meeting on October 7th. That concludes my report, and I can answer any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chesney. Director Bartlett, please.
I was a member of the ad hoc committee for this item, and we basically interviewed the final 3 firms. They were each firm was $500,000 apart. I mean, they were really widespread as far as their dollar figures and what they would cover. We just felt that the best value covering the scope of work was Venture Strategic. I'm glad that we're going to break it down into task orders because with smaller chunks and based upon what happens with the first task order, that will feed into the next task order rather than just a huge dollar amount that's being allocated for the scope of work. So I think we are in a position now to move forward. The scope of work is very important to this agency, and I would make a motion to approve staff recommendation.
Very good. We have a motion by Director Bartlett. Do we have a second?
I'd like to
Discussion?
for discussion.
Very good. We have a second from Director Rouse. Now discussion. Director Voight and then Director Ward.
As your task orders, how often are they going to come back and give us reports on those task orders and communication to see where they are and to see how good they're doing out there?
Yeah, we anticipate quarterly reports coming back to both committees. Specifically, the Foothill Eastern Mobility Ad Hoc will be the main committee where we have those reports come back, and we have a deliverables list that is included in the scope of work, and so we'll have a progress report on those items.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Director Ward.
Okay. I just have some questions on procedure. Task number 1, all they're doing is reviewing and analyzing data. Is that correct?
That is
Task number
part
1?
of it. Yeah, let me get to the...
I was looking at it. review and analyze community ascertainment study, which we're waiting on, analysis of recent demographic changes, conduct quantitative surveys. Is that with the future stakeholders, the bigger outreach that we're talking about?
It's part of it. It's actually just getting more information of the stakeholders in a region. And the stakeholders vary from neighborhoods to elected officials to businesses, schools. I mean, it's a whole gamut of stakeholders out there. And
So basically, we're hiring this consultant to go to the greater outreach,
the next step, correct.
past what the ascertainment study's done.
Correct.
What the very last task that was identified was project delivery activities. What is that? On page, I'm sorry, I don't know what, page 2 of 5.
Page 2 of that.
Page 2. It's where you listed how they're going to engage the stakeholders. Project delivery activities, it's after Caltrans project development process. So what would that be?
Yeah, this is, we're highlighting what the steps will be in terms of the overall process for what this agency's taking. So if you look in the beginning, discussing with regional partners, we're doing that at various levels, outreach to the various organizations. And as you go down the Caltrans project development process and then project delivery activities, that's for a project.
That's what I thought.
That's for the end, the ultimate goal, yes.
So you're just giving us further tasks, but they are not in task 1. Task 1 is just them researching everything and developing how they're going to go through it. So that was my question, is when they are talking to the other stakeholders, that's not in task 1? So is that going to be additional funding?
No, this task order here is for the, I would say, 5 bullets that you see as part of the scope of work, which includes reviewing the research from the ascertainment study, taking that beyond and doing their own research and going to the demographic changes and quantitative surveys. Also strategy development, also stakeholder outreach, also public media and social media crafting and outreach as well. All this detailed scope is part of that initial task order amount.
So basically overall, is their strategic, what they're trying to study, is that just to get the message out to provide a solution that we all need to get together to provide a solution, or is they actually going to promote a solution?
It is to first understand if there is a problem and to go out and gather that type of opinion, and then to collectively engage in a discussion to find out what solutions are available. It is not to lead or provide a solution, but to see if there's a way for us to be part of that solution.
Okay, because the only line that I had with a problem with is that they are going to develop and execute an outreach program to inform the public about the positive aspects and benefits of finding a solution. So it seems kind of they're like a PR.
But there's more to know.
Instead of just gathering, they're really trying to promote a solution. But we aren't going to actually tell people what the solution is yet because we don't know.
That is correct. And it's similar to some of the outreach that we've been doing separately with environmental groups and next with city elected officials, is starting with a clean sheet and going out and asking for ideas. And so I apologize for the poor choice of words in the report.
No, I'm trying to really
Yeah.
figure out who they are and what they're doing so that I can report that back to my city. And it kind of seemed like they're going to gather, I remember the door tags, that we used to put out, that I don't know what consultant did that, but it seemed more like that's kind of part of what they're going to be doing.
Right, and as you can see, it's very deliberative. I mean, this is a next step, but we have many steps to go, but this is a very important step for us to now, with the information we're gathering, trying to understand what solutions are available. And not to be promoting one over the other, but we really need to gather ideas from the stakeholders.
Which is why it was drafted as a task order, so that
Right.
each task
Right.
would successively be able to speak into whatever the next task is.
And I appreciate that. And I do appreciate having them all listed here. That was very good. It's just, I was having a little problem with what task number 1 truly was.
No,
For $472,000, so.
Right, I appreciate that. Director Bartlett.
And part of the task force, they'll be working, this firm will be working very closely with board members, you know, the ad hocs, on strategy, on outreach, and on messaging. So it's not like they're going to be out there just working amongst themselves in the community and not working with the board members specifically here and staff. It's a collaborative effort.
And if I may add, also with the various departments here within the agency too, such as communications.
Correct.
Okay, any other questions? Director Ferguson.
Yes, it concerns me that the last stakeholder on the list is neighborhoods and residents. It occurs to me that they really should be first on the list. And it should be kept in mind that all of these other stakeholders are supposed to be working for the neighborhoods and residents. And in a sense, the way this is set up, potentially the neighborhoods and residents become outnumbered in the weighting of opinions because there are so many more of these groups that are called out and talked to separately, and then neighborhood and restaurant and residents is one small group. And I realize that everybody that is in another stakeholder group is a resident somewhere too. However, they're not speaking as a resident, they're speaking as a member of that other group. And in light of that, my hope would be that there would be a way that say 8 residents could be contacted for every one stakeholder of the other groups. In other words, some formula, some way to bring this back into balance, because I think one of the ways that we get out of sync and get into difficulty with the public is when we overweight the other stakeholders and underweight the people we're supposed to be working for.
Good point, Director Ferguson.
That would be my desire.
Okay. Mr. Chestnut, let me ask a question. On page 2 of 5, but first, are these, this list is not in any sort of priority, is it? So we're not prioritizing one or the other? Director Ferguson, the good news is about a third of the way through the page, we have neighborhoods and residents as one bullet
And
point.
I do see that.
Yeah, followed by city and elected representatives. So the good news is the neighbors are before the elected representatives. The better news is that businesses and local organizations come after the elected representatives, because being a young from Yorba Linda, I'm always dead last. So I actually got moved up above.
Right.
But this is not in any order anyway, right?
And I do appreciate that. What is the community ascertainment? Why is that put in particular?
Because we see that the neighborhood and residences, the community ascertainment study that we're doing now is part of that information that we need to gather. So beyond going with the community ascertainment study,
It's a very small sampling, isn't it?
we see it as a component, and it's, so far we've had about, we'll end up with about 50 interviews. And
That's what I mean, it's very small.
It's a
So,
start for us.
in order to do justice to the neighborhoods, you certainly would need to conduct a great many more.
Director Ward, please.
I think one way that could be accomplished and brought back is when you do your public outreach events, that we really bring, after you talk to everyone and clean it down a little more, you really bring everyone back in. And I think the public outreach events really need to be really important on the list, because then we have a little bit more info, the electeds have weighed in, the businesses have weighed in, so I think we'll bring them back in, I think at that point, right?
Correct.
Okay.
And,
So I just,
and many points afterwards.
those can't be minimized, I think.
Right. And it doesn't look like that was ever the intent. So thank you for bringing that up, and Mike, thank you for your answer. Directors, with that, in the interest of your time, we have a motion on the table by Director Bartlett and seconded by Director Rath. Any other comments we need to address? All right, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
I have to abstain, Levine Act.
Okay, and we have one abstention. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chesney.